Hello, this is the section 4.5 lesson. This section is titled Mental Math, and we're going to do this section a little bit differently than what the book does. We have two main objectives here in this section. First is to illustrate how the associative, commutative, and distributive properties can be used to simplify arithmetic. And then second, we're going to explain why multiplication tricks work. Now these tricks are tricks that you may or may not have seen before, and maybe you use them to help simplify some arithmetic. We're going to illustrate how these properties that we've talked about the past couple of the sections explain why those tricks work. So the tricks that we're going to talk about are described on the handout for this section. We're not going to talk about all of them here in this lesson. I'm just going to highlight some of them. So the first trick is about the simplest of them, and that's the trick for multiplying by 2. And this really isn't a trick. This is really just more of an explanation of what multiplying by 2 means. So this trick here simply says to multiply by 2, you add the number to itself, or in other words, you double the number. So for instance, to take 2 times 6, what this means, or what this trick says, is that we take 6 plus 6, and then 6 plus 6 is 12. Well, why does that work? Well, because 6 plus 6 is exactly what 2 times 6 means. Remember our meaning of multiplication, 2 times 6 means we have 2 groups of 6. So here we have 2 groups of 6, we add them together, and we get 12. So this really isn't a trick at all. It's just another way of describing what 2 times 6 means. So here's our second trick, the trick for multiplying by 4. And this trick says to double the double. So for instance, if we take 4 times 6, it means that we're going to double 6. So the double of 6 is 12, and then we're going to double that. Well, the double of 12 is 24, so this answer should be 24. So now, why does this work? Well, let's make an observation here. 4 times 6 is equal to, 4 is 2 times 2, right? And then we take that times 6. So all we're doing here is writing 4 as 2 times 2. Well, now let's regroup things over here on the right. So I can write this as 2 times 2 times 6. And I'm going to put those in parentheses. And that's justified by the associative property of multiplication. Okay. Well, now 2 times 6, what is that? Well, that's just the double of 6. So the double of 6 is 12. And so now we take 2 times 2, or 2 times 12. So we double 12, so we double the double, which is equal to 24. So there we have justified why this trick works. We wrote 6 as 2 times 2. We regrouped things using the associative property, and then we doubled that, and then we doubled it again, and we got 24. So that's why this trick works. The next trick is the trick for multiplying by 12. And this trick says to multiply the number by 10 and then add twice the number. So for instance, let's do 12 times 7. So first we're going to multiply the number 7 by 10 to get 70, and then we're going to add twice the number. Twice of 7 is 14, so we're going to take 70 plus 14, and that gives us 84. So now why does this work? Well, 12 times 7, I can write this as 10 plus 2 times 7. And so now what I can do is distribute the 7 using the distributive property. So we get 10 times 7 plus 2 times 7. And so here we've used the distributive property. And so now we can do this arithmetic. 10 times 7, so we're going to multiply the number by 10, which is 70. And then we're going to add twice the number, which is 14. So 70 plus 14 is equal to 84. So there's our answer. So there we see why this trick works, because we wrote 12 as 10 plus 2, then we use the distributive property, we get 10 times the number and twice the number, we add them together to get our answer of 84. Next we're going to talk about the trick for multiplying by 9. And so this trick says to multiply the number by 10 and then subtract the number. So let's take the example 9 times 8. So we're going to take the number 8 times 10, so that gives us 80. And then we're going to subtract the number. 80 minus 8 is 72. So now, why does that work? Well, 9 times 8, let's make this observation. 9 I can write as 10 minus 1, and then we take that times 8. Well, now I can distribute this 8 using the distributive property. So we get 10 times 8 minus 1 times 8. And again, that's justified by the distributive property. So here we multiply the number by 10 and then subtract the number. And so we get 80 minus 8, which is equal to 72. So in the justification, very similar to the previous problem where we just rewrote that number, that first number, used the distributive property, and did the arithmetic, and we're all done. Last trick we want to talk about here is the trick for multiplying by 11, and we're going to do a couple different versions of it. First is where we multiply by a single digit number, then we'll do a double digit number. So for a single digit number, this trick says that the 1 and 10s place of the product are the number. So for instance, if we take 11 times 8, this trick says that the 1's digit is going to be the number, which is 8, and then the 10's digit is also going to be the number, which is 8. So there's our answer, 88. So now why does this work? Well, let's take 11 times 8, and let's rewrite 11 as 10 plus 1, and then take that times 8. Now let's distribute to get 10 times 8 plus 1 times 8, and so again we're using the distributive property. So now 10 times 8 is 80. So when we do this multiplication, this 8 that was in the 1's digit is going to get moved over to the 10's digit, so we get 80. And then 1 times 8 is just 8. And so now when I add these together, because here I multiplied by 10, the 1's digit is going to be 0. So when I add these together, the sum, the 1's digit of the sum is going to be just the original number, which is 8. And so we get 88. So there's our answer. So we see again how we rewrote this number 11 as 10 plus 1, using the distributive property, and that justifies why this trick works. Now for a two-digit number, the trick says to put the sum of the digits between the two digits. So let's apply this trick to the number, to the product 11 times 34. So we're going to take our number 34 and write it as 3 with a space and then 4. And this trick says to put the sum between the two digits. So here in the middle we're going to put 4 plus 3, which is 7. And so there's our answer. Okay. Now, why does this work? Well, let's rewrite things kind of like this. 11 times 34 is equal to 10 plus 1 times 34, which is going to be, we'll use the distributive property again, 10 times 34 plus 1 times 34. And so this is going to be, we multiply 10 times 34, these digits are going to get moved over one place to the left, and so we get 340, and then plus 34. Now, let's do this arithmetic off to the side here. So 340 plus 34. Okay. Now, when I do this arithmetic, here the 1's digit, 0 plus 0 plus 4, well this 0 came from the fact that I multiplied by 10, and so this digit here is always going to be 0. And I'm going to add that to the 1's digit from the original number, so I'm going to get 4. And then here in the middle, to get the new 10's digit, I'm going to add 3 and 4. which is the sum of the original digits. So 3 plus 4 is 7. And then lastly, I'm going to take the 3, which is the original first digit, plus the 0, which is there, and then we get 3. And so there's our answer, 374. So this example illustrates why this trick works, where the sum of those digits comes from, and why we put that there in the middle. So let's look at a couple of other examples of using the same kind of tricks that we just talked about, or I shouldn't say tricks, using the properties of arithmetic to simplify some more complicated arithmetic problems. So let's take this example of 59 times 70. And let's look at simplifying this arithmetic. So I say, well, 59 is almost 60. Multiplying by 60 is a lot easier than multiplying by 59. So let's do this. Let's rewrite this as 60 minus 1, and then take that times 70. So now let's distribute. So we get 60 times 70 minus 1 times 70. So there we're using the distributive property. Okay. Now, to multiply 60 by 70, let's write this. This is 6 times 10, and then times 7 times 10, and then minus 1 times 70, well, that's just 70. Okay. Now, in this first expression, let's rewrite terms and regroup. So specifically, let's write this as 6 times 7, and then times 10 times 10 minus 70. And so when I rearranged terms and regrouped, we used the commutative and the associative properties. So I'll abbreviate these with C and A. So commutative and associative properties of multiplication. So now I can do this arithmetic. 6 times 7 is 42, and then 10 times 10 is 100, minus 70. Now 42 times 100, well, that's easy to do. That's 4200, and then minus 70. And then this arithmetic here is very easy to do in our heads. So this is 4130, or 4130. So there we go. There's our answer. So we see how we took a somewhat complicated problem, rewrote it a little bit, used the distributive properties, the commutative and associative properties in order to do all of this in our head. None of this arithmetic here was terribly complicated. We just used the distributive and commutative properties to rewrite things a little bit. Our last example, let's look at the problem 24 times 25. Now, 25, it's fairly easy to multiply by 25. For instance, 2 times 25 is 50, 3 times 25 is 75, 4 times 25 is 100, and so on and so forth. 24 isn't so easy to multiply by, so let's look at how we can simplify this problem. Now, there's different ways of looking at this. One way to look at this is to write 24 as 20 plus 4. And then we'll take that times 25. Well, now let's distribute to get 20 times 25 plus 4 times 25. So there again we've used the distributive property. Now 20 times 25, let's kind of rewrite this like we did in the previous example. So this is 2 times 10 times 25, and then plus 4 times 25, well, that's 100. Okay. Now let's rearrange terms here in this first term. So let's take this as 2 times 25 times 10 plus 100, and so again we've used the associative and commutative properties. Now 2 times 25, that's 50 times 10 plus 100, and then 50 times 10 is just like what we did in the previous problem. This is going to be 500 plus 100, and then we do that arithmetic, and this is 600. So, like in the previous example, we took this rather complicated problem, rewrote one of the numbers, used the distributive property, and then the associative and commutative properties. We were able to rewrite things in terms of arithmetic that we could fairly easily do in our head. So that's it for the section 4.5 lesson. Your assignment for next class period is to read section 4.5 from the textbook.